BSing with
Who?
BSing with
What?
BSing with Sean K. BSing with
Who?
BSing with
What?
BSing with Sean K. BSing with
Who?
BSing with
What?
BSing with Sean K. BSing with Sean K.
So this is BSing with Sean K. I'm your host, Sean Kneese. The K is silent, Kneese, and bullshitting with Sean Kneese, in case you didn't get the abbreviation. And on this show, I talk with people pursuing their creative and intellectual passions. And today, my guest is Gabriel Morse. And you're an actor from Brazil. You came here to pursue acting from Brazil, and you're working as an au pair. And you've also written a lot of articles about your travels.
Yeah.
And why don't you just like elaborate on that and like tell us more about yourself and what you do?
Thank you so much for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here. I'm really excited. So I'm Gabriel. I go by Gabriel Morse. I created this last name Morse because, 6 years ago, I came to the United States for the first time. And then I wanted to have, a different last name. People couldn't pronounce my Brazilian last name here. So I was like, what's a beautiful last name here that I could use? And then I had one of my best friend, her name is Chloe Morse. And then she's like, why don't you use my last name? And I was like, okay, cool. So I'm just going to use your last name. So yeah, I now go by Gabriel Morse. So in Brazil, I used to work as an actor and as a musical theater actor, and I am an opera singer. So I came to the United States 2 years ago as an au pair to, try to improve my English and, get some time to travel here, and also to take some singing, dancing, and acting classes, which was very much possible last year because of the lockdown. I was able to take a lot of very cheap classes during, the lockdown. But so this is me, and I also write for my blog. I started a blog about 6 months ago, and I write about the travel experiences that changed my life. So I like to share inspiring stories that can touch hearts and move people to make their travel dreams come true, because I am from a favela, which is a poor settlement in Brazil where, where most of the poor people will live. And, I'm a son of Black parents, and my family's poor. So I like to use my articles as a tool to inspire the people that don't, they don't have much to make their dreams come true. So, I like to say that if I was able to make it, everybody back there are, they're also able to make it. So that's what I try to put on my articles. So yeah.
Yeah, and I read one of your articles you wrote about your parents and like how when you first left and they were sad that you were gone 2 years. They didn't expect you to be gone 2 years. So what can you just say about what life was like growing up in the favela and how your dream of traveling and your interest in acting developed?
Mm-hmm, sure.
Yeah.
It was very hard at first because, as I said, my family, my dad, he only went into like, I don't know, 4th grade. My mom was able to graduate high school, but that's all that she did. So my parents, they didn't go to college, so it was very hard growing up because there were moments that when I was a kid, I didn't have food on my table, and I didn't have any resources for me to like I didn't have a computer, internet, Wi-Fi. I didn't have anything. I didn't have a cell phone when I was a kid, so it was very hard for me. But I feel like that I was very privileged to live in the city, because I live in the city back in Brazil. The city that I'm from, there are about 4 million people, and they had a choir there, and a very famous choir sponsored by the car company Fiat. So they opened the auditions, and then I told my mom, I was like, I want to audition for this choir. I want to be, a singer. And I used to sing at church, so I also grew up at church. So I was like, I want to audition for it, and then. That was the first moment that my mom was like, okay, if you want to give it a try, you should just go for it. And I was like, okay, great. So I auditioned for it, and then I passed, and I was the first guy in the choir. There were only girls because, like Brazilians, they don't really understand much about opera. There's still that prejudice, that, it's a girl thing to do, the guy shouldn't sing opera. That's a very gay thing to do.
So it's a very like macho. It's a very like macho culture. You'd say Brazil? Yeah.
Very much. Very much.
Okay.
So I was the first one. And, from that very first moment on, I was clear about my intentions. I told everybody in the program that I wanted to be famous. I was like, I want to be an actor. I want to be a musical theater actor. I want to be an opera singer. I want to be able to, to do everything. So the choir allowed me to be like the spotlights were on me all the time because I wasn't shy. Everybody else was shy, but I wasn't shy. So I took advantage of that, that I took advantage of the fact that, they would have the spotlights on me because, for example, every time we went on TV, like I went on TV several times, I performed with, great singers, for example, like Andrea Bocelli. I got the chance to perform with him and I went on tour with him. I recorded a DVD with him. I recorded 2 DVDs, 1 CD, and then I went on tour all over Brazil and I was invited to perform internationally also. So, it was a great opportunity. So I spent pretty much most of my childhood singing and acting and going on tours and being on TV, and doing all of this, singing and acting stuff. And because of music and because of opera, I was introduced to languages. So that was the moment that I got very interested in learning languages. So I would take some pronunciation classes, so that I would work on my pronunciation and sing, better. So I would pronounce the words better when I was a kid because I couldn't speak English. So that was the first moment, I was like in 3rd grade. And then I was like, okay, I really need to learn English. And, that's, the part that I decided to put on my article. So I said that, I want to learn English and, which is a very uncommon thing for, the guys from favelas, because the number one dream, I would say the most Brazilian guys would have is to become soccer players because, soccer is a religion, in Brazil. So everybody's obsessed with soccer, like we have, we're the first and I think the only country that has won like 6 times, in the World Cup or whatever. I don't understand much about soccer, but I know that Brazilians are obsessed with it.
And I guess it's a way to get out of where they are too, right? Just you join the soccer team and
exactly. So the music that is very present in Brazil, especially in the favelas, is the funk, like the Brazilian funk. So it's either guys would sing funk or they would become soccer players, because as you said, it's a way to get out of the place where they come from and make money and become somebody, because if they try the conventional way to go to college and become a doctor or a lawyer or something, that's very impossible for us because we don't even have the right to basic education there. It's very hard for even to go to school. There were moments where I spent like 4-5 months without going to school because there were shootings all the time and there were murders, inside of the school. And, it was very hard growing up there. So what I'm trying to say is this was me, a small guy from a favela, and I was introduced to music. And I believe that music was a tool to, it was something that transformed my life. And because of music, I got to know languages. So I took French and I took Italian and English and, and German and all of these different types of language classes. And so I was like, oh my God, I want to become a polyglot. I want to learn, Spanish. I want to speak English and I want to travel abroad. And, and because of all the traveling that the choir allowed me to do, every time we went on tours, it was very life-changing for me, because I was like, okay, this is a great opportunity for me to, make my dream come true. And then I officially started learning English. Like, I took my studies seriously when I was 14 years old. So I was like, that's the perfect opportunity for me to learn. And then I started learning, and and then at that point, my life was a little bit better, compared to like when I was 8, when I was 9 and 10. But yeah, so pretty much it. So that was growing up there, and my parents, they were very supportive, but they were like, this kid is crazy, because as I said, it's very uncommon for us, it's not common for a guy from a favela to love opera and to love musical theater. Like, what is musical theater? Like, nobody knows, nobody in Brazil, like even the rich people won't even go to the theater because it's a super fancy thing to do, I feel like that here in America, people are more musically educated, if I should say. Like in schools, people will talk about music and you will take music classes in school, or I know it also depends from school to school and from neighborhood to neighborhood, of course. But I don't know. I feel like that people in America, they understand more about music. So, for example, if your kid is interested in learning a musical instrument, you're going to be more open about it. But when I told my mom that I wanted to learn how to play the piano, she was like, but for what? Like, why do you need that? Like you need to learn a useful skill in order to get a job, and make money and help us bring food to the table. That's the mindset that, the people from the favela have. We don't have the privilege that a lot of the white kids in America will have to, just focus on school and let's, get involved in all of these extracurricular activities, and you can just become a star at 16, you know what I mean? Because you have your parents supporting you. I was a kid and I had to help my mom bring money to the house, and, put food on the table. And that was very hard because at one point I wanted to pursue a career as a singer, as an actor. And another point I had to get a real job, so that I could make real money and bring, money to my household and then help my parents. Which is why when I was like in high school, I focused on translating and interpreting, and, when I was 18 years old, I went to translation and interpretation school, and I was like, I'm going to go to acting school later. But first, I'm going to become a translator and interpreter, because in Brazil, only 5% of the population speaks English. So if you speak English and Portuguese in Brazil, you can make a lot of money, as a translator, as an interpreter, as an ESL teacher. So I was like, I'm going to become an ESL teacher, and I'm also going to become a translator and also an interpreter, and I'm going to make money. And then I'm going to save enough to go to school later, because right now I can't afford that dream. I can't really do that because, it was really, it was impossible, So, and also, like it is in here, I think it's 100% worse in Brazil when it comes to, like, being an actor is very hard, like trying to find a job as an actor. It is really, really hard. People, they will always go by the looks. They will always go by the, like, who do you know? Like, who do you know? Who can, say something about you? Like, how did you get here? It's like, out of 100 people that are in the cast, 98 were people that they already know, and 2 were the people that they audition. You know what I mean? Like, it is very hard. It is very, I don't know how to put that into it, but it's just.
But do you feel it gave you more of an incentive though? Like, because you had it was harder for you to get there, and like you had to work harder to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Like,
sure. Yeah. Sure. Yeah. It did so much. It made me want to work harder, and it made me want to, to just, do my very best, So, so it was very great, the first years, and then I came to America, and then I traveled a little bit of the world, and that was very controversial for my parents as well, because they were like, if you were able to make money, don't waste it on traveling, invest in education, and and get an education. I'm like, I already got an education. I already became a translator and an interpreter, which in Brazil, it's only an international certification. You don't actually have to go to college for it. So, so you don't have to, there's no bachelor's degree in translation and interpretation in South America. You can only get like an international certification, So I got certified by the American Translator Association, by the Brazilian Translator Association, and, and I was able to find jobs and apply for jobs and make money. So, I spent a lot of my, my youth years working and traveling and investing in ESL teaching and translation and interpretation, that made me forget about my the real reason why I got all of those jobs, to why I got all of those jobs, I got all of them so that I could make money and invest in my education as an actor and as a singer, which is why I decided to become an au pair in 2019. I was like, this is the perfect opportunity, because New York is the place where everything happens. Everything that I want to be part of happens, So, if I want to pursue a career in the, musical theater industry, I have to go to New York. There's no way that, São Paulo in Brazil, Argentina, Buenos Aires, it's also a big reference. But I was like, I want to be part of a musical in English, I want to speak English, I didn't want to speak Spanish or Portuguese. I was like, I don't want to do that. I want to be able to be part of I don't know, like the Phantom of the Opera or the Evan Hansen, or I don't know, something like that. I was, those were all dreams. So that's why I came here, because I was like, I could take all of these acting classes, and I could, take all these singing lessons and, and dance lessons, and whatever I learned here, if I go back to Brazil with it would be a big, different feature about me, that people would be like, he learned all of these skills in America, which is the #1 reference country, for actors and singers. So I would totally make it better if I went back to Brazil with all of the experience that I got here. So I'm really happy that, I took acting classes during my first year from a teacher. She played, okay, I'm terrible with names, but she played a very important role in Harry Potter, the musical, like on Broadway. So she helped me meet all the cast. So I met all the cast, and then I took classes with them, It was amazing. It was a really great, opportunity. Like she gave me so many tips, She gave me so many tips on so many different, things as an actor, how to find jobs or whatever. I was very insecure about my accent. I was like, oh my God, they're never gonna take me because I have an accent. I'm a Latino, and, here in America, it's all about how you sound and how you look. And, I was super, super worried about that. That's why I took a lot of accent reduction classes and, for actors, and which, they were great. But, until the point that I met an opera singer who told me that one of the most successful opera singers in America she's a Latino, and everybody loves her because of her accent, that she is, exotic, and she is, unique, and, that I shouldn't worry about that. So right now I'm in a position where I'm very confident about it, but I'm also a little bit, concerned. I'm like, oh my God, are they going to be like, no, you don't speak English, you have to go back to your country. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, in musical theater, that's been hit hard with COVID and everything too. I guess that was around the time you got here, right? 2019. So
yeah, it was very sad, because I saw a Broadway show every month. So I was like, I want to learn as much as possible. I want to be able to meet the cast and everything. And then 2020 hit, and then coronavirus was here in 2020. It was very sad, because I couldn't attend the shows that I wanted to attend, because I like to go because I love musical theater, but I also like to go, and every time I went, it was an opportunity to learn, because I would observe how people would, act, and how they would, be on stage and stuff like that. And, and every time that I went, I was like, I could do that, like I have all it takes to do that, it's something that of course I have to work very hard to achieve, but, so that it was, it was very sad for me, because it was the moment that I felt like that my time and my opportunity to learn how to become a musical theater actor had been, postponed, because of coronavirus. But it was great. As I said, it was great because I took, not great, but, it was a great opportunity also to take classes. I was very lucky to be my host mom. She's amazing. She gave me, on my birthday, some opera classes. Like she gave me as a gift, some opera classes, and then I applied for those classes, and it was great because my opera teacher, she guided me so well, in a way that I had never been guided before, especially when it comes to how to find my voice and my place here in the United States as an opera singer. So I'm very divided right now. I don't know if I want to be a musical theater actor, or if I want to pursue a career in opera, which are the two skills that I have, I can.
So that appeals to you more than like traditional. That appeals to you more than like traditional acting. So like you want to stay in the musical realm, then, I guess.
Yeah. Totally. Yeah. I don't want to go to like a lot of people. They want to like become famous actors and actresses in Hollywood or whatever. I don't want TV. I don't want to go for TV. My place is up on stage, like I was born to be up on stage and to not be so known. I don't care, how many followers I'm going to have on Instagram. I don't care how fancy, I just want to be up on stage working as a Broadway actor, and you just, live by that, which is, like a very big dream that I have. So I really want to focus on that right now. And, I want to, after I'm done with the program, I want to find a way to, that's why I've been trying to find a way to go to school here, because I feel like that if I go to school here, I will be able to create my portfolio, as a singer. And it's going to be like, an updated one, because all of the material that I have as an actor and as a singer is from the moment that I was a kid, you know. So I sang in the choir from the since I was 8 years old until I was 16 years old. After my last performance, I was 16 years old, and I performed to 120,000 people. So that was it, you know. So that was the moment that I was like, okay, so I had to pause my dream, get a real job so that I could make real money, you know, because, you know, we're in the music in Brazil, it's impossible to just, you know, go to classes and not work, you know, especially coming from where I come from. So I paused my dream. I came to America to, you know, take some classes, and take some, you know, take some classes as a singer, singing classes and acting classes. And now I feel like that this is the moment for me to go back to school. But I also, like, it's funny because I went to acting school before I became an au pair, and that was like college. Like, then I went to acting school, which is, I loved it, but I didn't. I mean, I liked it, but I didn't love it because I feel like that I made a really bad mistake, which was to go to just like acting school. You know, I had to go to musical theater school, if that makes any sense. You know, like I didn't have to. I made a huge mistake. You know, the school was really great for just plays. You know, I could not just do plays. I wanted to do musicals. You know, I wanted to do opera, which was not the focus of the school. So it's funny because I learned from that mistake. You know, right now, every time I look into classes, I make sure that they teach what I want to learn, you know, which is, you know, because the reason why I'm saying this is because sometimes we're very much influenced by the name, you know, and how influential that school is and how famous, you know, the teachers are, or whatever. So I was like, you know, I'm going to be part of that school. So I went to, you know, PUC. The name of the school is called PUC. It is the largest and the #1 reference in private education in Brazil, you know. So I was like, okay, great. And all my teachers, they are, you know, all of these Netflix movies, you know, and I took classes from all these teachers that were in this Netflix and this telenovelas and all of these commercials, you know, in Brazil and internationally. I want to be their student, you know, I want to learn from them. And I did learn a lot from them. But as I said, the focus wasn't musical theater. So I feel like that I wouldn't say that I wasted my time, but I would say that I didn't invest in what I needed to invest. So yeah, so right now I'm looking into musical theater and opera.
Yeah, and so being an au pair, has that been like a good job for you as far as like being an artist, is like with flexibility and stuff like that? And I met you because you were friends with another au pair who's my housemate, Marianne, and she's from Colombia. And then so I guess all the au pairs kind of all know each other. I guess I don't know if there's like an au pair club or something like that.
Oh yeah, we all know each other.
Okay.
So yeah, it's been great. It's been a great experience, you know. It is very limiting, and it's very, at the same time, I have a lot of benefits as an au pair. I feel like that I also have lots of limits, you know, and because it is an international exchange program, you know, and like some of the biggest benefits are you don't get to pay for rent, and you don't get to pay for food, you know, which is great, you know, because in America rent is so expensive. So I feel like that I'm very privileged to live in a very prestigious neighborhood. But on the other hand, I feel like that you know, when I meet nannies here and I see that they would make $1,000 or $1,000 to like, you know, like $1,200 a week, you know, and I'm like, I want to make that money too, you know, like so it is very limited because education here is very expensive. So I have to limit myself in number of classes that I'm allowed to take every year because I don't make enough money, you know. But it's nobody's fault but the government who created these stupid rules, you know. So you know, so it is a great experience. I got to meet a lot of people and I got to travel a lot, which is the focus of the program. You know, the focus of the program is come to America, learn English, live with an American family, travel, take some classes, and go back to your country. That's the focus of the program. But for me, I wanted to do more, and I wanted to, you know, to like go to like get a real education, you know, not just, you know, credits here and there, you know what I mean? So, but like, I think I did my very best. I did my very best, you know. I think I I did the best out of I took the best out of this experience, which is something that I'm really proud of. I as I said, like I got in contact with so many actors and actresses, and I was like, I want you to, to teach me one-on-one. I want you to teach me one-on-one. I want to talk to you. I want to learn from you. I want to hear about your experience. And I consider that a very valid education, as well as going to school, like really going to school here, because I was like, I'm talking to someone who is currently working as an actor, who's currently working and who's currently doing what I want to do, which is something that I love to do so much. I love to talk to people who are in positions, like they are in places that I want to be one day, So
Yeah.
I love to learn from them. And I'm like, maybe if I'm in school, I'll be, wasted.
Yeah.
But yeah.
Yeah, and even though I'm doing more like voice acting, one that I think you saw, I did the reenactment series recently where I played the ringleader of a group of robbers too.
Oh yeah,
And
that's cool.
yeah, and like film acting, like that's more. I did a lot of improv before the pandemic. I was on a weekly improv team called Folks About the Town. It was like every Sunday night we did a show. Yeah, but then with
That's
COVID,
cool.
I haven't done as much improv since. But I've been doing like a lot of voice acting auditions, and then I did that reenactment in some like independent films and stuff like that. But I'm also interested in like the production side of things. That's why I got like this podcast, and I just want to be like in, the industry of like media entertainment. So that's why I have a lot of different skills in different areas with that.
Oh
But I guess like acting's acting, even though like you're doing like musical theater, and I'm doing like voice acting or like film acting. It's still like acting.
Mm-hmm.
There's still
Yeah.
certain things that kind of align with each other.
Yeah. That's true. That's very true. That's why I said that I like at the same time that I feel like that I wasted my time in that acting school, I didn't, because I was able to learn a lot too. So yeah. But I want to, the reason why I also want to go to school here is because I've never had the experience to act in English, so all of the acting that I did was in Portuguese. So I've never been given, a monologue in English. I've never had the experience to read one and to, to understand the intonation, the pronunciation, and, all of that. And that's why I really want to go to school here, because I will learn so much, and I feel like I would put even though I have all of this experience, I would put myself in the beginner position because, English isn't my first language, and I want to make the best out of it. I want to I really want to humble myself and be like, I want to learn the most I can, and I will do my very best to do that. But I don't know what the future will have for me. Education is still very expensive in this country.
And then you learned Spanish when you went to Panama. That was you wrote about that too. That like Panama was where you first. That was like the first country you traveled outside the United States. Was there culture shock with that between that and Brazil? I mean, I know there's a lot with that in the United States. I was going to ask about that next, but first, like I know like Panama was the first time you went outside of Brazil. So
yeah, it was very different. But I feel like that we Latin countries, we have a lot in common. So we have so much to share. Our culture is very, we're very, I don't know, I like to say that we're very hurting, in the same way, like we've all pretty much went through the same shit together. And it was, it was a great, it was very shocking for me. But I think that the language was the hardest part, because like, as I said in my article, it is very hard for me to learn Spanish. Like I would say that I can speak it, but I'm very insecure. I never know if I'm speaking Portuguese. I never know if I'm speaking Spanish, because the languages are so similar. They're very, very similar. So a lot of people are like, oh, that's the easy part of it, because if languages are similar, then they're easy to learn. And I'm like, no, that's the total opposite. If the languages are different, they are a lot easier to learn, because when the languages are too similar, you find yourself in a position where you compare a lot and you don't know how to produce language well, because you never know which
confuse
language.
The different words, like
so it's like the same word for
you don't know if
meanings.
it's you don't know if it's bonjour or buongiorno or something.
Exactly. So it's the same word for different meanings, and even like the same word with a different accent. And
I think Chinese is like the tone, right? Like the way you say a certain word. Like if you say it in a different tone, the meaning changes.
Hmm.
I think that from what I've heard about it, that seems to be like the hardest language to learn is Chinese.
Yeah,
Yeah, and all
I
those
agree.
characters too. I wonder what like the keyboards look like if it's like you have an iPhone, it's like has all I don't
Oh yeah,
know.
that's true. Yeah, it must be really hard. So yeah, so I every Spanish speaking country that I travel to, I find a similarity, with Brazil. So it's everything's very different, but I think that the hospitality is the same. We're very hospitable people, and the warmth and and all the touching, the hugging, and the how loud Latin countries are. We're so loud. We're always making
Well, New
loud
Jersey's pretty
noises.
loud too. I mean, yeah, New Jersey, New York, we're pretty loud too. So
Oh yeah. But
yeah.
like when I mean by loud, we're very like when we're talking to you, everybody can hear. I feel like that
Okay.
Americans are more polite. Like I'm talking to you, I will talk to you. But in Brazil, if I'm talking to you, I'll be like making a scene. Like I'll be using
Okay.
names. I'll
Oh,
be
like very
very
expressive. Like yeah.
yeah, we're super
Okay.
expressive people. So that is one thing that makes me feel like home. So that's why I love traveling to Latin countries. Because we're just very similar. But then I was very shocked when I came to America. It's very different here. It's very, very different here.
Yeah. So is there ways you feel more comfortable here? Is there ways that it's worse? Like what are some of the differences? I guess.
It's very funny. Okay, there are a lot of like negative aspects that I feel like that are very annoying, and there are very other very positive aspects about the culture that I love the most. And like one of them is the fact that in America, as a gay man, I can feel more safe. Like I can feel safe, and I can feel, um, you know, like I feel like that I can just be myself. Like I can just put on like high heels, put on makeup, put makeup on my face, and just go to a bar here, and people are they're not gonna care, and they're gonna be like, it's him, he does, you do you and I'll do me, like
Yeah.
that's what I feel like the culture is like. So I love that about the culture, because I can just be myself and nobody will care. In Brazil is very different, because we have a very bad habit to take care of people's business, and mind people's business, which is very annoying. It starts in your house. It starts in people's houses. The parents, they worry too much about what their children will do and how they look and how they sound and who they're with, and that kind of teaches them that they have to be that with everybody. So as a gay, like being gay in Brazil is really hard. Unfortunately, Brazil is the number one country in the world that kills LGBTQIA plus people. So we are the number one country that kills transgender and gay people. And I've never
What
had like an experience where I've been like
are you talking about? Like hate crimes or
yeah,
what are you? Okay.
yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, pretty much what I'm talking about. So yeah, so like I've had friends that they were like holding hands together with their boyfriends on the street, and then a random guy just stopped their car and beat them up. Like they were like, "Oh, why are you gay? God is gonna hate you." And and we're very religious people there. Unfortunately, Catholic. Most of the country is Catholic. It's like Catholic and evangelical. So people are too extreme, and I feel like the Brazilians are very extreme. We can't just be in the middle. It's either too much or nothing. So like if you're very liberal, you're gonna be super liberal about everything. If you're not liberal, you're literally gonna like approach a gay person on the street and you're gonna punch them in the face. That's what they're gonna do. So that's one thing that I love so much about America, is because yes, there is racism here. Yes, there is homophobia here, and yes, there's you can see that, but yes, there's conservative people here. But I feel like that here people don't mind other people's business as much as in Brazil, especially in New York. Like in New York, there can be, I don't know who said that, but I think it was a famous actor who said that. I read it the other day, but he said that like I read it somewhere, but he said that in New York there can be a person dying on the street and nobody will notice that person.
Yeah.
And
Well,
that is so
and
true.
there's kind of there's a good and bad to that, like being too selfish, not looking out for each other, and then but then like you kind of need a mix of individuality and community a bit. But like the
Mm-hmm.
community shouldn't be that you tell other people what to do. It should be that, oh, if somebody's dying on the street, you should care. You
Yeah.
know, that's one of my issues with Americans. I mean, I like America. Like, I mean, this is like really the only country I like grew up here and everything. But like the kind of selfish attitude a bit.
Mm-hmm.
Like, I think I think the culture also varies like throughout different parts of the United States. So, like I said,
Yeah.
like I think there's some parts of the U.S. where it's more like you were describing in Brazil too, like certain more isolated communities and stuff too.
Mm-hmm.
But
Yeah. It's funny. You said it all. You said it all. I also, as I said, like as you said, at the same time that I feel like that's a very positive thing about the culture, it can also become a negative thing about it because, um, yeah, I agree with you. There are a lot of, I feel like that there's a lot of selfishness here too. People, yes, they're not gonna mind your business, but they're also not gonna care enough about you. You know, they're just gonna be like, I'm too busy doing my things. I don't have time for you. And so yeah, like the focus that a lot of Americans will have on their careers is also very shocking for me. Because in Brazil we're very like love and peace. Let's just go to work. Make money and party all weekend long. There's like a traditional barbecue every Sunday in Brazil in all the families. So it's like I feel like that in Brazil I was raised to enjoy life more.
yeah,
Here I don't feel like that they enjoy life as much. I think it's a very I don't know how to pronounce that word,
yeah,
but consumerist
consumerist, yeah,
yeah,
definitely.
consumerist
Well,
country.
and people are stuck in comparing themselves too. They're not just like happy what they have, and there's a very limited view of like what success is. Like you have to be this at one. Like
Mm-hmm.
to me, like success, it doesn't have to be like like, oh, I have the hugest mansion, I got the biggest car. This is how I'm better than everybody. It's like, are you doing something you're happy with? Are you living a life
Exactly.
you're happy with? And I do think that's why like a lot of Americans are unhappy because they get stuck in that like, oh, I'm comparing myself rather than just enjoying the moment. Need more of
Yeah.
a Zen attitude, kind of just enjoying what you have and everything.
Mm-hmm. That's very true. Yeah, I agree. So yeah, it's been a great experience. I don't regret being here. It's very hard for me right now, the position where I'm at, because I feel like that I'm not gonna be able to stay here anymore. It's been pretty much like almost 5 years in America, but I've been coming and going all the time. Because I have to, every time that a program ends, I have to leave the country, otherwise I'll become undocumented, and then I have to reapply for another visa, which is very hard, very annoying. The process is super expensive, super. They make it so hard to the point that it's impossible to come. And then so I've been doing that all the time, and right now I'm in a place where I feel so like I'm running out of strength. Like it's been 5 years that I've applied for like 1,000 different visas, and right now I'm like, I don't want to do that anymore. I don't want to fight for something that I feel like it's
Hmm.
not meant for me. So I'm just gonna go to another country, like Canada, or I'll go somewhere in Europe, where it's a lot easier to. I'm not saying for me to become a permanent resident, but I'm just saying that it's easier and more possible for me to at least get a work permit. Because I don't know if you know about that here, but in the United States, international students are not allowed to work. Everybody does, like everybody does stuff under the table, but we're not allowed to work. We're not allowed to, get a job because we're stealing people's job or whatever they call it.
Yeah,
So I don't know. I'm just like very tired of all of that, and at the same time that, yes, I want to pursue my career in acting and become a musical theater actor. I feel like that maybe this is not the perfect place for me because number one, education is so expensive. And number two, being able to just be here, without being deported, it's so hard. So I'm just going to go somewhere else. So yeah, it's funny because this week I've been looking into like musical theater schools in London and in Ireland and Australia, Canada and these other countries where Brazilians and pretty much everybody else are allowed to get a visa to study and work, and just live a normal
yeah,
life.
yeah. I don't know why people think that would interfere with anything. Like what? I don't get the big thing about that here too
I don't
much.
know.
I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny. It's very, I don't know. It's very disappointing because I am very emotionally attached to this country. I've had some of the best moments of my life here. I grew so much here professionally, personally. I came out of the closet here, because it
Oh
was safe
yeah, I
for
was going to
me.
ask about that. If, like, you hit it a lot, like while you were in Brazil, like because you said there was a lot, there was a lot of stigma against it there.
Yeah,
Like, so that here was the first time you admitted it. Then,
yeah,
That-
yeah.
oh
It
wow,
was it was the first time here because I grew up at church. So growing up in church in Brazil, it's hell,
you know.
Sorry for the bad words, but it is very hard because church does a really bad job in a lot of things, and one of them is in allowing people to understand who they are, because church wants you to be what they want you to be, so that's pretty much the reality in Brazil. So I grew up hearing all the time that if I'm gay, I'm gonna go to hell, and if I'm gay, God is gonna punish me, and if I'm gay, God hates me, and that's what I grew up hearing all the time, And if I come out as gay in Brazil, I'm not allowed to walk into a church, So it was very hard for me because my family, everybody is from a church. So I was like, I cannot go, get out of the closet, come out of the closet here. It's not a safe place. I don't know what my parents how they will react, and I don't know how my friends will react. I don't know anything. But everybody knows. We don't become gay. Gay is something that you're born with. Like being gay, like I was born gay, so everybody knew. Since I was a kid. Like when I came out of the closet here, it's funny because my parents, they were like, "Okay, we knew it. We knew it." So my mom was like, "Yeah, you used to play with dolls when you were, a kid, and you would beg us to buy you wig, and then you would pretend that you're Beyonce, And I'm like, "Yes, so that I'm gay."
Yeah.
So
So your parents were more liberal about it than.
they were, yeah. My dad was still a little, because that's how they were raised. They were raised in a society that says that it's not right, it's wrong. But my parents, they were very open, to hearing about my process, because coming out of the closet is not an act, it's a process. And it was a really big process for me because the first time that I came to the United States, I was working in a summer camp as a summer camp counselor. And when I went there, it was a summer camp related and connected to the Presbyterian Church of Philadelphia, and my pastors were gay. So it was very, like, at the same time, it was very shocking for me. It was so important for me to be able to see God through the eyes that a lot of the churches will see here, which is a loving God, and which is, a God that doesn't care if you're gay or if you're straight, So it was very important for me. So I believe that everything that happened in my life allowed me to come out of the closet here while being here. And it was very important for me to do it while being here because I don't think that I would have had the strength and the courage to do it back in Brazil. And I really admire the people that do that. I have so many friends that became homeless. And of course, later on, they were able to find a home or whatever. But I have so many friends that they were kicked out of their houses because, their parents were like, if you're gay, you're not my son anymore. Or, so it's very hard because we have loving parents on this, and like on this side, but they're like, we love you, but don't disappoint us, like don't tell us that you're gay, because your job is to find a girl and and just have children with that girl and marry and buy a house and like what society tells you to do, like go to college, find a girlfriend, marry that girl, have a dog, adopt, get children, and
Yeah, so there's probably, I
and
guess
die.
and I guess there's a lot of gays there that do that just because it's that's the tradition to do, even though that's not what they want to do.
Yeah, there's so many people that they're not out of the closet, And when I came out of the closet, I came out very unapologetically and I was very clear about that, and I just, was super clear about that. And I am very happy that I was able to inspire so many people. And what is really sad is that there are people in Brazil that are married, people in Brazil that they have children, and they came to talk to me and they said, Gabe, I never had the courage to talk about that. And I was never able to do that. Like there's so many people in Brazil that they're not old. I'm not saying that 28 years old is old, but I don't think that it's okay to come out. I mean, it's okay to come out at any time. Take your time. Everybody should take their time. But what I'm trying to say is society does a really bad job in helping us understand who we are, that it's so sad to see that somebody at 28 years old, is still insecure about coming out of the closet, in a country so developed like Brazil, and I'm like, what is wrong with us? What did we do wrong? And of course, the roots of it is, religion.
Yeah, and I know it's also the president now is like super right wing too, right?
It's terrible.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was very homophobic from the first moment until today. He literally said on live television that he'd rather had a murderer in his house and a thief than a gay son. He literally said that on live television. He said, if my children, if my sons were gay, I would, kill them, or I would find a way for them to die. And I'd rather have drug dealers in my house than, a gay son. And, he would say such horrible things. And, that just encourages people to, that doesn't influence people to think the way that he thinks, but it influences the people that thinks the way that he thinks to speak up as well. So if people,
he's like Trump times 1,000, I guess is what he sounds
exactly.
like. Trump, yeah.
Exactly. So, he would be speaking up about, he would be with all of these hate speeches on live television. So people, if, people watching him would like, okay, if he can say that on live television, I can be like that, in real life, which got everything worse. So more gays are dying in Brazil, more people, more transgender people are dying. Last week, for example, was a big case, a doctor just left a transgender woman unattended and she died. And he literally said that like the reason why he left her is because she's not a her, it's he or whatever. So it's so sad. The reality there is really sad. So I'm really like, I definitely want to go back, visit my parents and be with my family and, explore Brazil here and there, whatever. But I do not see myself living there anymore, because even in the liberal cities, even in the big cities, it's still very hard. I cannot find myself like here. I would go out on dates. I would be holding hands with my friend, with, my boyfriends or whatever, and people wouldn't care, But in Brazil, if I do that, if I hold hands with a guy, I have a really big chance to be punched in the face, So, and it's, and I'm not exaggerating. It's that, like, it's that violent. People will literally punch you in the face, and they will be like, "Oh, but God doesn't approve that." And I'm like, "Okay, but what does God approve? Violence?"
Yeah, yeah. I guess, is there like a strong liberal like civil rights movement there, or anything, or that's trying to be heard, or?
Yes, we're trying our best. It's just very hard, right now in this government, because he does, it's, I don't know, it's he just does the best to, distract people from focusing on solving problems, So I don't know, it's just very hard. But yeah, there is a lot of, movements in Brazil and, and protests. And I'm very proud to say that we have the largest LGBT pride parade in the world, So the largest pride parade happens in Brazil, like over 2 million people attended, it's crazy. So like every time that we have a pride parade, we, it's a moment of speaking up, it's a moment of going out on the streets dressed with all the rainbow colors, and show to the world that, and that it's okay to be gay. But I feel like that, like what happened here to the gay community in the 70s, I think. Yeah. With all of the Stonewall, whatever, everything that happened here has not happened in Brazil. So I feel like that we need, we need something to, like to, I'm not saying that we need a war, but we need something, to, I don't know what we need. It's very hard for me to decide, but I don't know. It's very, I'm also very, it's funny because I came out of the closet so late. I feel like that there's so much for me to learn, there's so much for me to learn about the LGBT history, about LGBT history in the world, but also, and most importantly, in my country, So I've been learning so much, every time that I talk to my gay friends, I learn something new, and I feel like that I'm very privileged because I don't know the reality. Being really honest, I don't know what it's like to walk on the streets in Brazil holding hands with a guy. I know what it's like to be feminine and to be spontaneous or whatever. I've had moments that people were super homophobic to me. I've had moments where I couldn't get a certain job because, they thought that I was too gay or whatever. Yeah, that happened to me. But I've never had a moment where I was with a guy and, and then, people were homophobic to me. But that's a reality there too. So I'm really scared, I don't really want to go back.
Yeah, I wonder if
but
I wonder if there's something about. Do you think there's something about the American culture maybe that made it easier to have, like, despite all the racism and everything, to have like a civil rights movement and, like a gay rights movement here as opposed to Brazil?
I think so. But I think that because of history, things here happened way before in the past. Brazil is a very young country, which is one thing that I love to talk about. Like there are a lot of things that, like, Brazil is as young as Harvard University. So like, we're still taking baby steps, towards progress. We're still learning. I know that no country is perfect, but there are things that happen here in the United States 40 years ago that hasn't happened in Brazil yet. We were the last country in the whole world to abolish slavery. So we're still learning how to be a country. So yes, I agree with you, but I think it's a matter of, like, we need to get people used to all this. We're bringing this more to the table. I feel like that we've been talking more about it. I remember that when I was a kid, we didn't talk about gays, and we didn't talk about HIV. We didn't talk about all of these things because, we couldn't talk about it. But now you turn on TV and then you see a gay kiss on TV, which is great, So I feel like that the society is learning to, to understand that, not to accept, but to at least understand that we exist, So I feel like that there are a lot of the movements that happen here. They happened a long time ago. And that's why America is way more advanced and way more, how can I say that? Yeah, I would say advanced, like way more advanced than Brazil in a lot of ways, because we're a very young country and we're still, making these movements happen, But yeah.
Yeah, and I like what you said earlier about like a non-punitive God, because I feel like I don't like that idea of like a punitive God. I mean, I'm not religious. I do believe in a higher power and, like a God of some sort, not like a humanoid God. But I never like the idea of a punitive God that is just like, because someone's this way, they're gonna burn in hell for eternity. Like, to me, that's not a higher being. That's like a human would do that.
Exactly.
Like, torture someone because they don't like their ideas. And I remember there was actually, because like growing up, like we kind of experimented with different things. I went to synagogue, I went to church, and my sister like kind of did the same thing. And the Presbyterian church, she asked them as a little girl, like, are my grandparents going to go to hell because they were Jews? And they said, yeah, they're going to go to hell. And then another woman once asked my mother, like, oh, where do Jews go when they die? Like, because I know they don't go to heaven and stuff. So I like similar things like that. And I was thought, like,
yeah, it is so sad. It is really, really sad. And it's funny because I'm a translator and I'm an interpreter. I studied a lot about the Bible translation. And one of the things that, a lot of people don't believe, but it's still, it's still a big, debate, but it's how when the Bible was translated into English, there were a lot of English words added to all the scripture, and one of them was homosexuality, So, for example, in Leviticus, people say, oh, you shouldn't lay with a man, but, the real translation said that you should lay with a boy, so it's literally talking about, pedophilia, so, so I feel like that, I don't know, like it is very dangerous for me to accuse people or whatever. But what I'm trying to say is I do believe that when the Bible was translated, there were a lot of things that were added because of racism, because of, of homophobia, because of so many things that the church wanted to impose on people, and so God just became what the church wanted them to be, you know. So
Yeah, it's a way to manipulate people and
exactly.
control
So
them, yeah.
and it's funny because like the reason why I'm saying this is like I will say this without hesitating. In Brazil, the Bible in Portuguese is terrible. It is terrible. If you get a Bible in English and if you get a Bible in Portuguese, there are words in the Portuguese Bible that don't exist in English. Like when I say words, I'm talking about the words that change the meaning of that specific verse, you know, in the scripture, that chapter, whatever. So it is terrible how, you know, in the past, all those translators that translated from English into Portuguese, they were so evil. They were like, we're going to add these words. We're going to add this stuff that does not exist. And people won't know that because nobody speaks English here, you know, and I feel like that probably the same happened in the United States. Nobody speaks Greek. Nobody speaks whatever, you know, language the original Bible was, you know, like, we're just going to add these words and we're going to manipulate people and make them think that, oh, okay, homosexuality is a sin or whatever, you know. So I don't know. It's very, I'm so grateful for the church. I was able to develop so many skills. I got so many opportunities to, you know, to do so many awesome things. And I'm so grateful for the church, but there's so many things that the church does so bad, you know, that I feel like that they have to learn how to, you know, like we need more leaders that are brave, you know. For example, I love to study about Martin Luther King because look at what he did, you know, look at how he used the church to bring, you know, revolution to this country, you know.
Also the abolitionist movement too, like John Brown and Harriet Tubman were two of the like main founders of the abolitionist movement, and they both believed that God destined them to like free the slaves and abolish slavery. Yeah, those are two of my heroes, John Brown and Harriet Tubman.
I love them. Yeah. I love Harriet Tubman.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's, you know, it's like today it's all about power. You know, people don't want to help people. They just want to be in the power. You know. So, and I'm like, no, like what, you know, it doesn't make sense to be powerful and not use that power to help people. You know, and I feel like that today we need more leaders that are more concerned about, you know, like social problems, you know, and economic problems, and, you know, not only spiritual or religious problems, you know, like it is like the church wants to do in Brazil, you know. They live in this spiritual world and they just, you know, they don't understand about the real problems, you know. They'll be like, God will help you, whatever, but there's a homeless person right in front of the church, you know, and they'll be like, oh, I don't see this person, you know. That person is living on the street because they want to, you know. And I'm like, no.
I honestly see a little bit of that in the New Age movement too, because the New Age movement is kind of like, oh, I'm attracting all this wealth because I'm positive thinking. Oh, that person's starving over there. They're not thinking positively enough. That's why terrible things are happening to them. Like that's kind of my view of like my issue with like a lot of the New Age movement. I mean, I kind of do in some ways agree with the like, oh, you kind of attract what you want to attract through like your thought, your energy, and like your free. But I don't believe that like people go through shitty things because they brought that on themselves or something like that, though.
Mm-hmm.
But, yeah.
And we're so like, when it comes to people that are going through hard stuff, a lot of times we're just victims. You know, we're just victims of the system. We're just victims of literally of the system. You know, the system is built to make the rich richer and the poor more poor, you know.
Yeah.
So
well, that goes back to like finding the balance between like being too individualistic and community too.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's what I think like the issue with like a lot of the United States is just like too much more for me. Like, yeah, that's why there shouldn't be like, I think people should be able to get rich to a point, but like there shouldn't be this like drastic like wealth disparity of like multi-billionaires and like people living in poverty. Like there's just something wrong with our values.
Yeah, I actually want to write about that. There is an article that I've been working on, which is a letter. I'm going to write an open letter, and the name of it is going to be Dear Rich People, you know. And I just want to talk about how much money they spent on crap when they should be helping people like me, you know, a guy that's going to have to go back to a violent country because I can't find a way to stay here, you know. And I'm like, and I'm just like, I'm not one. I'm like one in a million people that try to come to this country,
Right.
coming from, you know, dangerous country and trying to make just a living. I'm not trying to make it to Hollywood. I'm just trying to be, you know, free and, you know, and make my dream come true. But no, it's not going to be possible for me because I don't have enough money to even go to community college, which is the cheapest way to go to college here in this country. But while it's me not having money to go to community college, there's a bunch of white kids in South Orange and Maplewood, you know, that are, you know, spending money on crap, you know, that stuff that they don't need. And I'm like, can't you help people? And I'm like, I don't know, it's just a system of how they buy and buy and buy and buy and buy and buy and buy without needing it.
So any final thoughts or anything you'd like to say?
I want to thank you for this opportunity, and I'm very grateful that our paths, you know, crossed. You are a great guy, and I'm very thankful for this opportunity. Thank you so much for everybody that listened to it. Thank you, and I'm sorry for, you know, my mistakes in English, whatever, if I made any. But thank you, and if you like to read about travel experiences, I would recommend for you to go on my blog, please, and read my stories. You know, I hope I inspire you somehow to make your dreams come true, even though it's hard.
All right, great. Yeah. Well, this was a good chat. Thanks for. I'm glad we got into all the philosoph. That's what I love. Those are my favorite episodes of this, when it gets into like the philosophical and like the other topics as well too.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But and where can people? I think you told people where they can find you and stuff, right?
I don't think so, but you can go. I think it's easier if you go on my Instagram and just follow me on Gabe_has_arrived. Or Gabriel Morse, if you find me on Gabriel Morse. Or if you go GabrielMorseMedium.com, because that's where I post all of my content. So yeah, that's it.
All right.
Thank you.
And thank you. And if you want to keep updated with future episodes of BSing with Sean K, subscribe to BSing with Sean K on Spotify, iTunes, or wherever you get your podcasts. Also, this video is on YouTube, so subscribe to the YouTube channel. And yeah, that's about it. I'll catch you on the next one.
BSing with